Someone asked me yesterday how I've created this extremely flexible part. Let me show you. By the way, I'm gonna add the concerning video on the upper right now, but let me show you why this question appeared. I'm gonna delete all my driving curves from my frame and create something completely new, like a polygon with an arc. You can see the number of bosses changes, everything maintained stable. You can see all the radii, all the drafts still maintain, even the holes maintain. And the question was how to create such a flexible part. My answer was you should use modeling technique like horizontal modeling. Hi and welcome to another NX CAD Secrets video, by the way. Today I want to show you how I've modeled this part, but it's not replacing a course containing horizontal modeling and design algorithm things, which I do usually offer to people. You will be able to reproduce some of the steps, but for a deep understanding of horizontal modeling, which is pretty simple by the way, I guess this example is maybe not complex enough. About complexity, I'm of course creating such training parts as well as machines for guitar building, even guitars, Class A surface modeling as well. And I'm reusing this kind of method on everything I do, whether it's simple or it's complex. So you would be able to reproduce it in a very fast manner as well. So it's not like, oh, I have to create UDFs, I have to think about algorithms. No, it's not that complex. If you have it trained, you will be able to reproduce it. But anyway, I will show you some of the secrets behind by creating a completely new file. I'm gonna do a slightly simpler version, but anyway, it's gonna work as I've showed you before. First of all, I'm gonna create a datum axis. Why I did that related to my Z-axis, I'm gonna explain later. Next step is the creation of my frame. I'm gonna use a sketch therefore on my top view and create, first of all, we're gonna exchange it later, a simple rectangle. If you type in the values, hit the tab button, there will be dimensions created. If I select my left mouse button twice, everything's fully constrained. I'm gonna finish my sketch. And I'm not gonna directly extrude that. First of all, I'm gonna create a copy of my sketch. Why I do that, I'm gonna explain later. By use of Composite curve, I'm gonna reset this. And here you can see a selection rule called tangent curves. If you select your curves now, you might draw a rectangular error. This is not gonna work, because if I exchange my curves afterwards, the relation to my tangent curves, to my specific curves I have selected, will be lost. So it is important to create a relation to the overall sketch, no matter what is inside the sketch. And by the way, if the selection rule is set to single curve here and you select in the part navigator, it is always the complete sketch selected. If you right click your selection, you can see it's feature curves, no matter what is declared here. So everything's fine now. And you don't have to do any settings in here. Okay, it's a general composite curve. Pretty cool. Now I'm gonna think about my boss position. I had bosses on each ending of my curves, and therefore, to get it working, I'm gonna use my point set. Point set is by default not included in here, so you have to expand your group, datum point drop down, and add your point set. I'm also gonna reset this command, so I have my default values here. It's curve points, but it's not equal arc length, it's curve percentage here. And I'm gonna select my composite curve. Why I do that? The reason is, if I create a new sketch for my frame, completely new, and I use my replace function, the point set should be referenced to a copy of my sketch. So if I replace this sketch by another one, the composite curve will recognize this and replace its selection and point set, which will be referenced to composite curve, which is actually, I'm gonna reset and select them again. It will maintain stable. If you reference point set to a sketch, everything's cool, by the way. If you reference it to a sketch, it's gonna work. You get the same result. But if you replace the sketch afterwards, it's not gonna work. There's some kind of mistake inside the command. But anyway, if you create a composite curve, it's gonna maintain. Next thing is I need an unequal boss position. If I create my boss right here, I'm gonna draw a square or a circle, however, gonna extrude this as a for my boss. If I create it here related to this point, and if I exchange my curve in here, it might happen that this point is deleted and replaced by something else, so the position of my boss will not maintain. That's why I create my first boss in the center of my construction related to my coordinate system by first of all creating a new point. And I'm gonna create a pattern now of this point, and why I do that I'm gonna explain later. Pattern feature, I'm gonna reset the command and select my feature to pattern. It's my point, yeah, just a simple point. It's a kind of reference pattern that I'm gonna reuse later on. And I'm gonna use general, middle mouse button to select my first point. It's also this point, and my 2 points for my instances is my point set. That's it. Nothing else you have to define in here, just select your things. So I'm gonna create a pattern from this point to those points. And I have a relation now to my point set. You can see upon here, it's single point, but if I enter the command again and select this field here, you can see it's feature point. That's the used selection rule. If you select within the part navigator, it's always the complete set reference, no matter how many points are in there. I was talking about horizontal modeling. Horizontal modeling means it's just one rule you have to follow. If you select something, always select the possible oldest objects. So what is old, what is new? I have a reference here to my feature points. I've created a feature by start a feature point set, and then I've created my points. So the points themselves are newer than the feature, and there's a relation to my point set itself, to the feature, to the possibly oldest element. That's the rule. Horizontal modeling means that if you have the chance, always select the possibly oldest object. That's it. This rule I'm following within this parts to maintain everything as stable as possible. That's it. But you're not gonna learn from reproducing these parts. Therefore, I usually offer courses where you can learn such techniques, which I in former times called design algorithm. But I think if you hear such word like algorithm, you think of programming things, and you might think that things are complex, but it's not. It's pretty simple. It's just one rule you have to follow. Let's go forward. That's my basic concept, which I'm going to reuse afterwards. So I select my features and create a feature group called concept. And I can start modeling now. I'm going to create my frame. I'm also going to reset this one. And I'm going to reference not to my sketch, I'm going to reference to my composite curve as well. Because it's there, and just because it makes replacing afterwards much easier. I could reference to the sketch as well, but no matter. I just want to keep it unique somehow. It is symmetric, and it's not that high. Let's use 15 instead. And I need an offset here, which is symmetric. And let's use 10 therefore. That's it. So next thing is I'm gonna create a draft. Reset this one, it's draft from faces. And here's the reason why I've created an axis here. You can see after resetting the command, NX already has a vector being used. It's by default the z-axis of your absolute coordinate system, but there's no relation to my basic datum coordinate system. And this is something I want to avoid. I always want every direction, if possible, related to the datum coordinate system, whether direct or indirect, but just a left click on the datum axis. So the reason why I've created this datum axis is because it's much simpler to select it, okay? And even if you replace it afterwards, it's a very, very simplified process if you create a single datum axis. A stationary face is wrong. I have used parting faces and use my top plane. Middle mouse button, faces to draft. About horizontal modeling, you could select your faces to draft like this. By the way, it's both sides, and select all the faces. But you can imagine what kind of problems we have when I modify my sketch. If I add another curve, create a polygon as I did before, you will have to reselect faces. So in that case, there is one possibility, pretty simple, a relation to the overall body. Just one click on any face of the body and you will create a relation to the overall body, no matter how many faces are included. And in that case, it's always the right face is selected. You could select the top face, no problem, because you won't create a draft on the top face, because the top face is perpendicular to your side faces. So this one will maintain stable, and I'm going to create an expression here. A and G is 3. That's the way how to create an expression. Name is value. Middle mouse button twice, drafts being created. Let's create the edge blends next. And also here I have to think about my selection rules. You can see it's tangent curves, and I want these upper edges to be round. But I'm not going to do it like this, so I'm going to deselect all of them. I have to choose something like, well, if you use body edges here, you have a problem in this area, because this is my parking area and it has to be an edge. But there's a selection rule which is perfect for referencing draft faces. It's called outer edges of faces. It's just one click on your draft in the part navigator or graphics area, and all the outer edges of your draft will be selected. And that's everything we need in here. You can see the draft faces, the faces resulting from the draft, and only outer edges are selected. And no matter how many faces you have, they will maintain selected. Also here, it's a relation to an older object, to the face instead of the edge. Just imagine you create an extrude and a body will result from the extrude. So the extrude is the older element, body is newer. Faces result from the body, so the faces are newer. Edges result from the intersecting faces. So the edge is the newest element of your body. And if you create a relation via edge blend, for example, and relate to the body, you have created a relation to the possibly oldest object. Pretty cool, pretty simple. That's what we call horizontal modeling. So the frame has finished, and I'm going to create a group as well and create my bosses. Well, for the boss, I need an extrude, I need a draft, I need an edge blend, but I need another sketch instead. So I could copy those elements somehow. Well, copy the sketch, draft the edge blend, and create my boss therefore. Maybe let's do that. Copy and paste. I'm gonna reuse all the references, so just hit OK. So boss will be in center. You can see the extrude is still referenced to this sketch. Okay, that's a mistake. So I'm gonna double click this, deselect, and select my new sketch here. And that's all I have to do. It's not symmetric, it's none. The value here is a little bit bigger, 25. And I'm gonna replace my curve by something round maybe. It could be rectangular, but I'll start with a round boss. Let's make it 50. And finish this one. There's no mapping required. You can see here's my boss. I got the draft, I got the edge blend. You could have started with a sketch, extruded, pretty simple, instead of modifying things, and then copy and paste draft and edge blend. That's also a possibility. But anyway, here's my boss. Let's make this internal and create a new group called boss. So it's time to copy this. And I'm going to use pattern feature again. But this time I'm going to use reference because I've created my pattern already. It's just required to select your feature to pattern, the overall group. That's cool. I've created a group, and no matter what's inside the group, all the features contained will be selected. So if I add another specific object I want to be copied as well, it will be copied as well because I've created a relation to the group. If I haven't created the group, if I selected those elements instead, 3 elements, and add something into the group, it won't be copied automatically. That's why I select my group instead. The pattern to reference to is the pattern feature here, and basic instant handle is in center. So the system needs to know where to start the pattern from. It's this point. And if I show result now, there comes an alert because I've used a simple method and I have to use variational instead. And I have to reuse some references, like the parting face shall be reused, draw direction, and I guess this one, I'm not sure. I'm going to reuse this one. And here's my pattern. Pretty cool. Next thing I did in my original part was I deleted this body because it's not required anymore. Of course, you can use layers instead, but the problem I have always is I don't want to edit my reference sets. The reference set body includes all the bodies of the part, and well, I'm a lazy guy, so I delete my bodies instead. You shouldn't do that because nobody will understand, so this is something you might not reproduce. I love doing that. Let's unite, but first of all, I'm going to create another group of those elements. Right click and create another feature group, which I call bosses. And now I'm going to create my unite. Makes life easier. I select my frame. It's one body, no matter how many faces, etc. And my tool is the complete group. So the reason why I've created this group is if I right click my selection here, you can see it's feature bodies used no matter what is declared here because I've selected within my part navigator. I have a relation to my group, and if the number of body changes within the group by creating another type of frame, still it will be united. So the number within the unite will be updated automatically. Pretty cool. Now I'm going to create some edge blends here. And there's a pretty nice selection rule called feature intersection edges. And also here, the question is how to horizontal model. What shall we do? Of course, you could use tangent curves, once, twice, etc. But also here, it's a relation to the newest objects. The newest object is the edge, which is a result from my unite. And you should be searching for something older. And there is a possibility called feature intersection edges. And just one click on your unite in the graphics area or part navigator, you see all the resulting edges will be used. And of course, also here, if the number of bosses will change. As I have related this edge blend to the possibly oldest object, which is the feature unite, instead of its resulting edges, it will maintain stable, I promise. I use an expression here. And now it's time to create my powering holes, which shall also be deformable, but therefore I can really copy and paste because I need an extrude, I need a draft. I don't need this one, I can delete that one. I need a bowling operation and an edge blend afterwards. But I'm going to do it blind instead. I'm going to select my features I want to copy, Control C to copy, okay. Control V to paste. All the references have to be reused, so that's fine. I'm just going to hit OK. And first of all, rename it to holes. Make everything clear inside. So, and rename this to hole. I have an extrude, which diameter is wrong. I have a draft, which direction is wrong. I don't need this edge blend, so I'm going to delete this. And to edit those values inside my extrude and draft, just select those objects and hit the enter button. I've already created a video about this scenario, which I'm going to link to the upper right of this video. The distance of my extrude both sides shall be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to use a value like 100 somehow. No, maybe not that big because of the draft. Diameter is, let's use 15, and the draft angle has to be negative. But I have created a user expression here, which is linked, so I can edit from here. So I have to access the formula tab and type in a minus to get a negative value of my draft direction. Because it's a hole, it's a negative element. Gonna hit OK. And one thing I have to do, which is available since, I don't know, I guess NX8, NX85 maybe. You can convert your unite to a subtract instead. Convert to subtract, right click, convert to subtract. And, oh, the edge blend is broken. I don't know why, let's have a look. I guess it's because of my diameter, which is still wrong. Yeah, here it is. It's 50. I've chosen to use 15 instead, and it was not updated. Failure from the system maybe, I don't know. But now it works, as you can see. It's subtracted, it's deformable, and all the edge blends are here. That's it, horizontal modeling, guys. Let's have a look at my first sketch. I'm going to prove that everything works fine, so I'm going to delete all my curves and create a new profile. And finish and see how it works. There's no review required, no mapping required. Everything shall maintain. Beside some warnings. Those warnings are normal because if the number of bodies changes when you unite, you will get a warning. What can we do? You could suppress it and unsuppress it, or maybe change some values in here, or deselect objects and select them again and the warning will disappear. I hope you enjoyed this very long tutorial. Hope there's something you can learn from. I know point set is a very specific thing which you're maybe not going to reuse. I use it a lot when creating injection molded parts, when I have ribs inside, etc., which I want to multiply. Then I use the point set in combination with composite curves. But anyway, I guess there is nothing in which you cannot reuse within your own construction. The most important thing is horizontal modeling. Always referencing to the possibly oldest objects by use of a specific selection rule. Think of your selection rule. Maybe you can try out things. I'm using all of them and they differ a lot in between those different commands. And I am awaiting your response in the comments below. Please give me a comment if there's something you're going to reuse, or especially if there's something you did not quite understand. Anyway, if you want to learn more about NX CAD secrets and horizontal modeling, subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.